You can't see art with the lights on. You have to take the lights off and then you can fall asleep. But you will hear my voice, even in your sleep. And so you'll be learning things, even though you can't really see what I'm talking about. That's okay. So yes, as an art historian, I came here to get a degree in art history, mostly in pre-Columbian art. The art of the Mayan, the Olmec, the Aztecs. But when I got here, I discovered I really liked the art of the Southwest. And one of my first jobs when I was here, I worked for a private collector. But I was actually, it's my second year as a graduate student, and Dr. Barbara Moullard, who was in anthropology, ran into me in the library, and she said, "Oh, do you need a summer job? Because this gentleman contacted us, and he needs a private curator. He has a huge collection that he wants to donate 90% of it to museums. And so he needs somebody to catalog it, to hire appraisers, to look at it and assess it, to determine what he wants to keep and what he wants to donate." I said, "Sure, I can do that." And so I got to this man's collection, and I was given an air-conditioned garage about the size of this room. It was filled with shelving, metal shelving. And I was given the room that has Southwest material because the other curators were given the more fancy stuff from Mesoamerica and elsewhere. Okay, so that was sort of the start of what happened to me. Classic Mimbres brought out my pottery. You're looking at an example here. And what is best known about it is the magnificent geometric designs of black paint on a white kaolin slip with fine lines and geometrics. This is a very famous design in that it's copied or was taken up by contemporary Pueblo artists such as Maria Martinez or San Ildefonso to create her black on black designs of radiating feathers. But there are many examples that have caught the imagination of collectors, museums, artists, and scholars over the generations. And this is not what I saw when I was in the garage, having to catalog the collection that I was going to be working on over the summer. Even though this is what I saw subsequently. You also get polychromes. What I saw was this. What I saw was a hemispheric bowl placed up, many of them, placed upside down on the shelving. Because that's the way you store Mimbres bowls. That's the way most people, most collections store them, is upside down on their end. I went to, what was it, Beloit College to look at their collection. And they stacked them until the one on the bottom broke. That's how many they had, though. I think they had the Maddox collection, the Maddox Brown collection at Beloit Museum. I said, okay. But so what I saw was this. And I was in my second year, and I was working on a master's thesis. And my thesis was going to be following the sun kachinas of the Hopi. Nothing politically incorrect about that, but this was 1977. I had gone to see Hopi kachina dances the previous summer, and as well as the Poamu that was in February. And there was a hula kachina with this big sun mask. And I thought, this is fabulous. I've got to figure out what this is. And so I did all the study on Pueblo mythology, all the different transcriptions of myths. I read a great deal about their culture. And when I saw this on the shelf, what I saw was the form of Pueblo's underworld. In mythology, before people emerged to the surface of the earth, they lived in a dome-shaped underworld that was all kind of icky and awful because nobody died there. And so it was steamy and yucky, and they were trying to figure out how to get out. And they knew there was a hole in the sky in the underworld, and they were trying to figure out how to get up there, get out. And the mythology, the various emergence myths, there are various ways to get out. But when I saw this, I thought, what the heck is this? And when I turned it over, what I saw was that. The exteriors are plain and the interiors are painted. Most of them are painted black, or they're fire black. They're painted with a red iron oxide paint that when it's reduction fired, it turns black. The other thing I determined in researching this is that the Mimbres had to want them to be black on white, not red on white. They were choosing a black on white coloration. Now, for art historians, what I'm doing, I'm looking at why people make the decisions they make. Why a hemispheric bowl with a hole in it? Why black on white? Why a plain exterior? Why a painted interior? How are they used? What is the context in which they perform in the culture? Who sees them? How are they used? Where are they found? And that's pretty much all I'm looking at, okay? Very narrow focus on that. And then when I'm looking at the paintings, I'm looking at the types of compositions. Why are they choosing the elements that go into the imagery on the interior? Okay, so those are the questions that I have. Nothing beyond that. Not an archaeologist, I don't dig in the dirt. I'm very pleased that other people do that. Because when you're working on objects from a non-literate culture in prehistory, what your data is going to be is ethnographic material, if it can be applied at all to your prehistoric culture, and archaeological data. And my data is only as good as the archaeology was, as far as this culture goes. And so I'm reliant on the amount of material they're getting and the way they are documenting the context in which this material is found. Okay. I did have to do a good deal of work to make a tie between the classic Mimbres Mogian, which ranges in date. This is a slide that I have from my class. I taught at ASU from about 1985 until last year. And I taught Native Arts in North America, Southwest Native Arts, etc. and so on. But so your date range is only from 972 to 1130. Well, contemporary pueblos, you don't even start getting ethnographic data on them. Earliest might be the 17th century, but most of it comes from the late 19th and into the 20th century. And so how do I make this leap? How do I make a connection? It is through imagery. And not just visual imagery, but verbal imagery. Okay? It's not a one-to-one thing, in other words. Okay? It's not like, okay, they have step cloud motifs, and they have step cloud motifs. That's not going to work. But anyway, unless you don't know, the heartland of the Mimbres is Mimbres River Basin, also Cannon Creek, Upper Gila River, and the tributaries of the Rio Grande. And you have ceramic types, classic Mimbres black on white, and then the polychromes. And the architecture, it used to be, previous to this time period, pit houses, very much like you would get with the Hohokam and Gila and Salt and Santa Cruz river basins and the Sonoran Desert. And the iconography that I studied in class is emergence mythology and various rites of passage. In most everybody's mythology, if you pick it apart, you do have something which is emergence, which is a creation myth. In a lot of native cultures, you have what is known as a migration myth, where people, once they've emerged to the surface of the earth, they migrate to the center place, where they set down rules, and that's where they're going to live. Because all of these people always live in the center place. And then you have various rites of passage, and you have death. But your rites of passage are going to be like birth. In some cultures, it's naming. You have naming rituals. You have puberty rites. You have marriage. You actually have things like old age, menopause rites, for women at least, and men as well, where you kind of retire from doing work. If you live that long, you don't have that death right. You know, if you manage to do that, it's always good. So what I found looking at the material is these pots didn't just always, some of them, a lot of them come, so be warned, from a burial context. Okay? That's where a lot of these are found. Others are found on house floors, trash mounds, etc., so on. And that's how they're recovered. A lot of them are pot hunted, the way we consider pot hunting. A lot of the material in museums. Jesse Walter Fuchs gathered most of the stuff at the Peabody Museum from a pot hunter. Because that's where they came from. That's who had ranches, that's who had farms in the Mimbres area. And they just found this stuff intriguing. A lot of them did really good archaeology. A lot of them made notes, took pictures, did drawings, kept journals, etc. and so on, but they were not archaeologists. And then since then, especially because they're so beautiful, they're worth so much money on an art market, you do have pot hunting. It certainly doesn't help archaeologists. That shows you the area where the Mimbres lived in the southwestern portion of New Mexico. These are some of your major sites. Okay, I had notes. I guess I'll give up on them. Oh well, all right. So you do have, what you have all along these creeks, riverbeds, are major sites about 1.5, 2 miles apart. And the reason they're like that is very much the same as with the Hohokam in the Sonoran Desert, is that they had canals, irrigation canals. And so they had major canal heads all along these, the riverine areas in this part of New Mexico. And so they're fairly close together. They're a lot more than what's listed there. And so if you're living in this area, especially at the turn of the century and into the 20th century, you can't put spade in ground without running into a Mimbres site. Okay, and so that's why we have a lot known about it and a lot of classic Mimbres schools. This is the kind of environment you have. It actually ranges from, of course, forests in the north, riverine environment to Chihuahuan desert toward the south. So there's a real range of environments. This is, I think this is Galaz. No, this is Schwarzer. Let me see.
Galaz.
Thank you, Matt. Galaz, right? Yes. This is the site plan of it. And you see, I kind of thinking, have a, whoops, let's make sure. Look, there's the river. Right there. And this is the artist's rendering of the Pueblo village, so contiguous pueblos, usually 2 stories, some of them, with an open plaza, which lead archaeologists and anthropologists to believe they had a bipartite moieties situation like many of the pueblos have, as far as their social structure went. And for the most part, early writers about classic Mimbres pottery and its meaning, such as Jerry Brody and Stephen LeBlanc and others, they saw it as more or less genre painting because it comes across as very accessible to us. Because obviously these are people gathering wood with their dog. This is a pregnant woman. In case you don't know what a pregnant woman looks like, this is a pregnant woman with a burden basket. She has a crook cane. And this is supposed to be a dog, but who knows? I determined that a lot of the animal imagery or I suggest, I haven't determined much of anything because it's a little leap of faith to say that, I suggest that a lot of the animals represent clan symbols. You know, that this has to do with a lineage group. And it could be a dog, could be both. You know, and you know, you get the feeling this might be perspective somehow, but hard to say. So a lot of people thought that yes, what you mostly have are genre scenes and farmers with digging sticks going wild about a corn crop or something. Who knows? I find it kind of peculiar, quite frankly. I've never seen a bunch of guys in a farm plot look quite like that, but you know, we like to interpret these things in a simple way. And Dr. Brody, I did not make any friends with him as a young graduate student, didn't really know him at the time. I read in his book that, you know, you can't confuse a picture with a pot. A pot is a pot. They were used for food, you know, and so there's no meaning outside of this other than it being an image of everyday life painted on the inside of a food bowl. And they ritually retire, you know, after they're done with it. This happens to be a female potter. These are pots. This is the way Mimbres represent bowls in their paintings. There's little circles. And this is actually polishing rock stones and either a paint brush or polishing sticks. This is the absolute tip end of the bowl she's holding in her hand. This is her holding her paintbrush. This is her string apron that identifies her as a woman in Mimbres' painting. And this is some little female attendant tying her string apron or adjusting it. Another genre scene, we all say. And that's matched with a weaver. And this is an interesting perspective on weaving. This is a male. And the male sitting here with a probably water bucket. This I suggest, not determined, is a speech gesture. Speaking, which I find in Pueblo ritual and dance is the way it's represented. Could be something else. But this is his loom, which is like a ceiling loom. This is his bench, the batten and the shuttle right here. And of course, at Hopi and other Pueblos, males do weaving in the kiva in these types of looms in current day or in historic times, and women for the most part do pottery. Okay. And so that's just an aside. I'm trying to build a basis for making ethnographic analogy using Pueblo mythology and others, native peoples of the Southwest, as well as the information that you get from Mesoamerica, because of course, the Southwest is the northern frontier of Mesoamerica. And what happens in Central America, Central Mexico, had ripple effects all the way up into, as probably most of you know and have had lectures on over and over again, and lectures just like this one, about a connection between Mesoamerica and the Southwest. Okay. And this showing the closeness between the three major groups. You have Mimbres, Mogollon, you have Hohokam, Gulfport system. This is a wonderful map that by David Wilcox for an exhibit I did with him at Pueblo Grande Museum where I worked for about 5 years doing the exhibits there. And he did an exhibit on Gulfports. And we worked together. It was kind of fun. But it seems that there's a lot of flow between Chaco and Mesoamerica that went right through the Mimbres area, which they benefited from. And a lot of archaeologists feel that they began building pueblos very similar to the Chaco Great House pre-Pueblo people, ancestral Pueblo people. But a good deal of their imagery, their jewelry, even style of painting, for the most part, comes from the Hohokam area to their west. Even the irrigation technology very likely came from their Hohokam neighbors. And even though Hohokam pottery is very, very different from classic Mimbres. My students hate Comparative painting. They think it looks primitive. And I'm going, I love this stuff. This is my favorite. It's just very quickly, it's just wonderful. But it's made for the masses. These people were socialists, if not communists. By golly, everything is rubber stamped the same, but then there's a lot of individuality in it. And so I have a whole bunch of stuff written about this book. This is a large drawing at the State Museum on the U of A campus. And this is of a bird basket carrier with her little croquet. And there are a whole bunch of them, because this is the Hohokam style of painting. It's repetitive, and it's very nervous looking. There's nothing static about Hohokam painting. And then this is the same interpretation, but with classic Mimbres polychrome. Identical image, except for she throws in, the artist that is, the pronghorn on top of the basket. Okay, and that in itself is kind of weird. Who carries a pronghorn in a basket like that? You know, and the more I start looking at these paintings, the more I realize these are not of the real world. These are not paintings of everyday life. They're paintings of life as it is in the other world, okay? In the world of ancestors, in the world in the very beginning. Okay? Just because they're all abstract. In many cases, there's nothing particularly naturalistic about it. But what you have is a woman with a string apron. She's pregnant, her navel's extended. She has this crook staff, which in Pueblo ideology and ceremony means longevity, wisdom, elders, ancestors, burden bearing. Okay, let's see, going that way. This is a figurine assemblage that came from the Silver Bell site on the Santa Cruz River north of Tucson. And this is reassembled by my husband, Matt Thomas. It was fragmentary. It's part of the Bond collection from the Silver Bell site. It's been published by lots of different people. But so you have this, in most Hohokam figurines, they look a lot like this, are fugitive because they were fired in trash. They were used once, thrown in trash, and they were fired accidentally. So you don't wash those suckers, because they'll just disappear in your hand. These happen to be painted as well. But what you have here is one of the Bond figurines from the Silver Bell site. They're fabulous. You have, these are shell bracelets. This is a Bogart. This is also wrapped shell bracelet. This is upper arm. This is a necklace, wrapped necklace. This is probably a big leather thing for playing the ball game. You know, and then you have body paint. You have some sort of loincloth, the red stuff down there, little feet, turban headdress, diamondized. Looks just like this guy. Remember, this is a woman. And little things. This is a couple. I write about them in my article in here. But this has been killed in a peculiar way. Her feet have been stretched out. You know, stuff like that. That's not just weird. This is weird. This is where they actually obliterated her feet. So at some point. And she has a little basket on her head. These are her earrings. Okay, I'll move on. So there's a lot of closeness in iconography, just the basic symbols. And in some cases, even style. So these people knew each other pretty well. There's a lot of trade going back and forth. But style is very cultural centric. You know, they don't really trade these classic Mimbres black and white pots out to everybody. They kind of keep them in the community. Same thing pretty much with the red on the Hohokam. People don't like other people's stuff. They like their own stuff. But this happens to be calculation scene. There are 4 of them. They just kind of threw in a lizard here for no good reason, just because they like doing stuff like this. I love these people. I really do. The whole, who knows what all this nervousness is about. One of the things they do, the Hohokam, they have these bands that go out from the interior. It's the same kind of thought of as the killing of a pot, or the thing where you get with Navajo rugs where you have that line out. It means it moves on to the next thing. It's always moving forward. It's moving on beyond the confines of this composition. You know, it's that thought of continuance. That's what art historians talk. We just make it up as we see it. You know, we just keep going with it. Yeah, that's what that is. Okay. And so you have the copulation scene, but what the Mimbres do is, the next scene is, oh, look what happens. You get a baby. Oh my goodness. Here's the baby, here's the cradle board. And what I determined here is, this is a rattle, and we're not just trying to make the kid happy. I think it's some sort of weird rattle ceremony. And there is a vestige of a rattle ceremony with the Hobbies. It was part of the naming. One of the first naming ceremonies, where the father is able to come back in, and here's your dad, he's bringing you a little present, and your name's going to be blah, 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 blah. Okay? So, there are several of these images. There's several of them in that there are 4 of this scene right here. Art in the world of prehistoric art history, several is 4. And the other thing I noticed, now, collective memory, this is where it really gets on the edge, where people go, this is where you get up and leave, like, oh, sure, she's this. This is a Gila shoulder jar from the Hohokam, Santa Cruz phase. And of course it's made with a form and then built up. But this is what a Mimbres cremation looks like. The Mimbres practice inhumation for the most part. But there is an occasional cremation in which they use a shallow bowl and they cover it with a hemispheric bowl with kelp in the top of it, which looks over the world like that. You did have, which makes me think, but you can't prove it, that you had people, Hohokam people, marrying into classic Mimbres villages. They would want to be cremated, you know, as far as, you know, their own culture goes. The same thing with the Silver Bell site figurines. They're not particularly like all the other kind of Hohokam figurines. They look really Mimbres. So you're wondering, where did that come from? Well, these people visit one another, let's face it. So that's just driving it home again. It shows you the shallow bowl, which is very much in the style of a Hohokam for a Mimbres pot. Also, you have the concept of early, this is a kiva from Chaco Canyon Great House from 750 to 1150, which is about the same time period as classic Mimbres. And it shows you how they were built. They're a hemispheric structure with a hole in the top of it. And we all know that kivas are liminal form, architectural form. You have a sipapu where the ancestors come from the Underworld. You're having ceremonies in the kiva, and then the ancestral kachina comes out the top, and you have a performance by the ancestor in the form of kachina in the plaza. Okay, that's how our ancestors visited us in your pueblo, and still do. In the winter months between winter solstice and July, sometime at the end of July. You have the ancestors coming back to the pueblo dancing and sharing their harvest, their fall harvest with us, because when it's winter there, it's summer here. It's opposite. Okay. All right. You sticking with me here? Okay, now, all right. Back up, on. Now, the other thing I determined, and I went to, here I'm getting all sucked into this, when I determined that, you know, Jerry Brody's saying that pot is not a picture, you know, pot's a pot. And when I'm going, well, a pot is not a pot, it's not treated like a pot. When you turn it, when you hit a pot, you punch a hole in the bottom of it, and you turn it upside down, put it over the head of the deceased, it's no longer a food bowl. It is a symbol for something else. And whether or not these things were used as food bowls, they probably were, or for other things, or for other rituals, a lot of them wound up in a last rite of passage as this symbol of the underworld. And as you can see all around you, Pueblo people, the Nave people, they create their universe in colors. The underworld is thought of as black and white in color. The underworld is all color rainbow. The various quadrants, north, south, east, and west, are associated with various colors such as blue, red, green, black. Okay, so you have black and white interiors of these things, and then you have a plain exterior. So, ergo, the name of my first book was Within the Underworld Sky, Mimbres Ceramic Art and Context, because that's what you're looking at. I went to the Maxwell Museum in the late 70s to the early forming of the Mimbres Photo Archive. They were kept in archival shoebox-like things, and they were hard copy photographs. Mary Modee, who was the assistant curator to Jerry Brody, had already cataloged them by different animals and different types of geometrics and human forms. And what I determined in my counting of everything, the most often image shown in Mimbres pottery are flying birds. And it's flying birds that find the hole in the underworld sky of most Pueblo emergence myths. Okay? And here are a couple of them. Here's that one. And then you start getting stuff like this flying figure, cloud motif, inverted bowl. You can interpret that one, can't you? I know you can. You know what that is. Okay, emergence mythology. This is another type. And what you have here is you have a male figure riding on the back of a cicada with a spider web, and here's her basket. This is spider grandmother. I'm supposing that it is. I'm presuming that this is not a Pueblo spider grandmother. This is the Mimbres spider grandmother, the female that creates things out of her own body. That is known for weaving, making baskets, making everything, making all things. In many of the native cultures, women own all hard substances. They create. Men just own spiritual knowledge, as therefore they're important. Okay. But women own all tangible objects, including the land, well, we don't really own the land because it's owned by a god, but we lease it. But basically, a woman in Pueblo society used to be, and probably still could, if you're going to divorce your husband, you just set his stuff outside. And he's gone. He goes back to his mother's home. Okay, it's a matriarchal society. So here's what would be the Mimbres spider grandmother, with probably one of the twin warrior heroes or one of the sons of Sun, riding a cicada, looking for the hole in the underworld. Because there's mythology where cicada, as anthropomorphic cicada, finds the hole in the underworld, goes up and calls all the clouds from the different directions. It's very long myth. Myths are weird, you know. You read them and go, this is really strange. But you can kind of make sense of them. Even every culture's myths, you gotta kind of take it with a grain of salt. Another wonderful black and white hut with a millipede or something on the interior. This is the exterior. And you can read all of this stuff if you're here. You don't want to listen to me talk about it. But what I also determined in Pueblo, just trust me, ritual, ceremony, religion, black and white checks represent the Milky Way, or the galaxy. And that's how it's represented in black and white checks, and I'll show you some examples. And the Milky Way is the path of the dead warrior. That's the dead warriors who travel across the night sky on the Milky Way. The sun travels across the day sky on rainbows. He goes from his home on the east coast to his home on the west coast, where he lives in the houses of two women, two goddesses, the Hur and Muti, who own all hard substances. They dress him and undress him for his travels in the upper world and underworld. And so that's how he moves about. And this pot is really wonderful in that what you have rim kills here. The pot is killed right there, right there, right there, right there. Right where that's killed, you have these rainbow bands. And only the black is fired on. White and black, this is fugitive pink. The blue-green, the red, and whoa, we're not happy. We're running all over the place. Okay, I think we're going to speed this up. This is a Hopi Gashari, galaxy clown, that's what they're called. Black and white stripe. And if you know anything about Hopi clowns, they're supposed to be funny, they're supposed to be clownish, they're supposed to act in opposition to the norms like all clowns do. But they're also dangerous, you're never supposed to touch them. They're also, most of the clown societies and pueblos are curing societies. They're what's the remnants of shamanism in Pueblo culture. Okay. This is your classic Mimbres, black on white, representation of maybe a clown. Don't know. All we know is he's painted black and white stripes, just like this guy over here. What he has on his head, though, is something very different. I'll be coming back to it. Okay. The other thing I determined or found, I'm looking at now the Mimbres Photo Archive, which is on the TDART, the Digital Archaeological Resource Database, TDART. There we go. And there are like 9,000 painted Mimbres bowls on TDART. And most of them are geometric. But what I found is about 27 of them have this design. And looking at plants, lo and behold, look a heck of a lot like cotton balls to me. So what? Well, cotton's a major crop with these people. And you have to have cotton to make ceremonial any kind of outfit. Let's face it, you're going to wear something. It's either going to be made out of yucca or it's going to be made out of cotton. And cotton is mostly used for making ceremonial dance clothing. Not the rough stuff that you use yucca for. And so I found that and you do get some animals stuck in there. And again, there are 27 of these. That's a lot. It really is. There's a lot of examples of this composition, so I figured it meant something. The other thing, getting into death and discovery, traditional Hopi burials. Somebody dies, and it's like, in many cases, it's like you want to take care of the dead very quickly. You take the dead person, you take them outside of the village, you bury them, you blacken their hands and their face. You cover their face with raw white cotton. You have this stream that comes out, you build up a crib, stick dome over their heads. The string comes out above that and out of the grave, so the spirit, the soul of the dead person can get out of the grave and leave. After 4 days, they cross the trail back to the Pueblo with lines to keep the spirit from coming back to the Pueblo. Every day, they erase a line for 4 days, and after 4 days, your rite of passage is complete. And the spirit has moved on to the other world. That is at least the Hopi burial rite as recorded by anthropologists. Okay? And so what you have over the face of the dead Mimbres, in some cases, is the image of white cotton. Are you believers yet? All right, this bowl I found. I didn't find it. I discovered it in a collection. And what you have here is the horned pit viper. He is a rattlesnake. And little rattlesnakes here. He's up here. And in his body, a dead person. That's it. This is his arms. These are his feet. It's upside down. This form, trust me, I termed as an image for the sun. The travel of the sun on an angular path, or suburb. Oh, come on. Let's go back. Okay. I have two big thumbs. And you have what here, you have are two gentlemen, he set down his staff and his rattle. And he's covered the jaws of the snake with a bowl. This round thing. And this is a woman just standing off to the side. Okay. And I did determine, if I don't get to it before you all leave, that there is an anthropologist that decided that women weren't all that important in Mimbres because they didn't show up a lot in the bowls. Well, in every important painting, there's at least one woman, and it only takes one to be important. Okay? And there she is. And so I just wanted to show you different bowls. You've already seen her bowls. Here's the bowl. This is a bowl. It's a painted bowl over this guy's head. This is a bowl. This is a dead guy. This is the dead eye. Look, just show you dead people. This is the dead guy on his back. This is weird. This is not everyday stuff. This is not genre painting here. You know? You can see that down the street. Okay. This is just showing you that this is likely a painted bowl. That's just little examples. And then the pit viper. Now in Pueblo you have some of you may know or may not know of the flood. The flood was brought by the big snake, the conte, the underground waters are a snake, and the snake, the body of the snake goes all the way to the Pacific. So all bodies of water are actually this way. And this is the horned serpent. And you have horned serpent in Pueblo, you have horned serpents in Mesoamerica. And here's the little horned serpent right there. This is, I think this is from the Autry Museum over here. And then you have, I'm just throwing this in, horned serpents are also associated with Mimbres in decapitation scenes. So you have human sacrifice. Another everyday genre scene that you have in ceremony. This happens to be probably a burial scene, whereas this is some sort of ritual decapitation scene. Right here. And serpent. And just bringing this back, this painting is very similar. I would go out on a limb to say this and this might actually be by either the same artist or by the same potter group, just because of the similarities from the way this head is made and this head is made. We, as non-native peoples, and I think I speak for most of us that are non-native peoples here, we like to know who makes things. We like to be able to put a person with the object. That is not something that probably the Mimbres really care about at all, or most native peoples. But a lot of people have really done a lot of research trying to find the hand of the artist and trying to locate a lot of different specific artists in some of these paintings. Now the second most often represented image in Mimbres pottery are fish. And in Pueblo mythology, fish come into being when the first person dies. Remember, nobody dies in the Underworld. was really cramped and awful. So they emerged to the surface of the earth where they made a whole bunch of gods and demigods, and they're looking for the center place. And they cross a river and people die. Nobody died before. What the heck? And the dead people turn into fish and they swim back to the underworld. Everybody runs back and looks down the sea. And the little fish go, we're okay. We're going to move up to the upper world. No time at all. But so, I started thinking, a lot of fish. And so the more I see fish, the more I think, oh, that's such a good bowl, isn't it? This is actually a polychrome. Come on, come back. You do it. Let's see. And it's maybe a heron, some sort of water fish, anthropomorphic. This is his little fishing net over here. And so, but a lot of these birds, like a heron, in Pueblo mythology, they are spirit helpers, or they're animals associated with warrior cults, with warrior societies. And so here's this, he's carrying the ancestors into the underworld, into the upper world. He's taking care of them. He's taking them across the river Styx, so to speak. Just remember an art historian is right about this that. And so you have the black and white check fish, underworld fish. You're going to look at a lot of fish. You get composite fish. You get a double duck fish. So you have this waterfowl, a ducktail. A lot of Mimbres animals are, as well as humans, are composite. So there's a lot of things going on. They're trying to jam-pack all sorts of meaning into this. And here's a bird with a fish skeleton. Okay. Oh, and that's what I forgot to bring. And here's just a fish skeleton in the middle of a bowl. Why would you paint a fish skeleton in the middle of a bowl?
To serve fish on.
Exactly. Then why do you have fish skeletons as part of your paho? And that's what all of these are. They're fish skeleton effigies. Every one of them. Okay, that's how they do feathers. That's how they do fish skeletons. And they make these effigies out of feathers because Matt made many of them for me just to show how to do it. You cut them. You have a feather and you make this little triangle, cutting it, and then you degrade the stem, and you can make fish skeleton effigies that can be worn in headdresses and on the ends of poppies and prayer sticks. But that is what they're representing, are fish skeletons and not feathers. They're not arrowheads. They wouldn't hold up. They fall right off. Okay. And here's somebody turning into a fish. He's got a fish thing over his head, he's got his dorsal fin. Of course, everybody wants to make this the bottom and this the top, and that's not what it is. Because this comes from Chihuahua, Pueblo, 1350 to 1550. They're not standing up, they're swimming like fish. It's the same thing, they have a fish thing over their head. And of course, Edmund Ladd translated this for in Dutton's Sun Father's Way, as the two figures being the warrior twins, elder and younger, sons of sun, in the underworld, turning themselves into fish. There is a equivalent from Mayan mythology of their twin heroes immolating themselves, grinding up their bones, throwing themselves into a river, turning into fish, and destroying the gods of the underworld. So all this mythology gets transported all over the place, okay? Even into contemporary times. Twin warrior heroes on the neck of a crane. I mean, these are just beautiful things. You have, he's standing here, he spans the interior of this arc, of this dome. They're riding across the underworld on the neck of a crane. I mean, that's poetry. Yeah, it just is. They got their little fish headdresses on. Yeah. This is too complicated to even interpret. It's in the book. But sometimes they're very complicated, like these guys, these twin warrior heroes. Running, his feet are on pronghorns, of course the fastest land mammal in the West. Really outspread most folks. Different, just let me tell you that rabbits, the enemy dead. Of course they are. They eat crops. They're rabbit hunts. You kill them, you scalp them. They're the enemy dead. They're allegory for the enemy dead. And here you have the twins. One's kind of chubby. The other one's okay. This is a ladder. And what I like is when they do a tree or something, it's everything. It's the roots. But this is a bird, probably like an eagle or something. And they're going to go steal them. Because that happens in Pueblo. They capture little eaglets and they raise them and then they sacrifice them. And it's got everything. She's trying to feed him a lizard. But this all takes place in the mythic times. Yeah, right. But it also takes place in everyday life, as would happen. That's not everyday life. That's some sort of myth. There's got to be some sort of twin guy myth thing going on. And who are these guys after? The women. Not just any women. These are like maidens. Because aren't they pretty? They are. They're just lovely. They're also fickle. And they're anywhere between 2, 4, 5, or 6 of them, depending on which guy. That's what they look like. Now here's saddlers. This is kind of a mess, but that's the way it looks. There are very few of them. They're probably all by the same family group of frowning ones. Because in the mythology, the twin war guys generally throw the corn maidens into having sex with them. And getting pregnant, of course, making corn. It happens every year. And in some myths, they turn themselves into animals, like pronghorns, as you see here. They look pretty happy. They don't. Okay, that says it all, right there. And this is another one. We have 2 guys, and this is the group of women. The group of 6. North, south, east, west, above the border. And then this one. And just let me know when it gets to be around 11 o'clock, okay? I kind of determined that this symbol, which shows up with a lot of guys, represents this. You got a pot, you got a phallus-looking thing, you got something like a sword that might represent water. But yeah. Copula is the same with the sword staff symbol that may represent the sex act being depicted. And so you get a lot of them. A lot of these staff-like objects. I like this one. Here she is as kind of a pot with the basket. He is the sword. So here she is, and here he is, and there it is. And then you get the basket with the sword in it. And this is the way we like to look at this. But actually, this is the bottom. He is in the basket like that pronghorn would have been. Because this is female. And it would have been the basket resting with this guy holding his staff in kind of this flexed position. That's the way I read it, because I'm an art historian. Okay. And this, I like to think of this as just like a married couple. Like that's the formal wedding portrait. Everybody's duded up in their best outfit. She's got her basket, she's got her face paint, she's got her best loincloth, it's just necklace, the whole shebang. That's great. Okay. And then back to babies and baby naming, and there's the cradle board, female. And this is just a whole bunch of different male activities. And it's kind of like the life story of this person. Now my most recent work, which I completely would, I was given the task, I had to write a chapter, it didn't have to, I was asked to write a chapter in the catalog for the Art Institute of Chicago exhibit. And the person who was the curator and the editor of the book told me that I had to write about women in Mimbres pottery, which is not anything I was particularly interested in at the time. And then I went, oh, okay. And so I went and read a whole bunch of stuff about gender studies and Mimbres iconography, and that's when I ran into the thing about women not being important. And then I started discovering that women are pretty much in everything in Mimbres pottery. And a couple of them are birthing scenes, such as this polychrome one, with this very odd-looking, almost ready to get out and walk, figure here with this odd icon. This is just lovely. Whoops, back. Come on. Come on. All right. Try not to move forward. This is your baby waving at you. This is her string apron, right here, set aside. But this is the birthing posture. And so what I kind of determined, there are a lot of these. There are like, oh, golly. There are about 30 of these images, a single figures, a lot. And you can't tell gender here. But what gives them away is oftentimes the headband, the face paint, the necklace, the posture. Okay? And I really go out on a limb. In Mesoamerica, your goddesses, that create everything, like most goddesses do. Guys really don't do all that much creating. They die in many cases. And they die bringing new ages of the earth into being. And in Mesoamerica, you have like 4 of these women. We have several of them, actually. And they're associated with the cardinal directions, and then they've unearthed several of them, and they are in this posture with a hole. Come on, let's see. Oh my, I'll get this going someday. Come on, there we go. With a hole. Come on, dang it. There, that's what they look like. I said they look really nasty. They usually have fangs and they have hearts for necklaces. But yeah, so I determined that there are a lot of women in classic Mimbres pottery. And women own everything, so even if you have something like a quiver, doesn't mean anything. She owns it. It's made out of something. She owns all ceremonial objects. Matriarchs in Pueblo society, major materials used in ceremonies are kept in her home. And the men go and get it, take to the kiva, and use it. Guys they have some Christmas stuff, but not a whole lot. Then moving on to other stuff. So yeah, the agreement with gender material, women turned out to be really important folks. Bipartite moieties societies, division into summer and winter labors. Oftentimes you have a chief that's the summer chief and the winter chief, and the responsibility that are broken up. And what I noticed is you have a lot of these rotational opposition, dual hot painting of predators and prey animals. Oftentimes pronghorn or deer and mountain lions. And in many cases, they can be anthropomorphic. But this is your mountain lion, this is a pronghorn. And of course, they're all filled with all this wonderful geometric painting. And here you go. You have anthropomorphic, you have the pronghorn with the male associated with it, the mountain lion with the quiver and the bow and arrow, prey animal probably having to do with summer, fertility, predator having to do with winter, warrior stuff. Okay.
Is that heavy wear on the bottom there?
You bet it is.
So
it was probably used as a food bowl.
Yeah.
But it wasn't been used as a ceremonial object. It might have been something that, the transition between winter and summer. It's broken. I can't see particularly that it was killed in like a rim saw. But yeah, and it's not restored except for being reassembled as far as I can tell. Let's see. That one, I'm not even sure that that's a particular kill hole, it might just be missing. Sure. But again, you have this male image, pronghorn, and they're connected. They're connected by the pronghorn horn and its tail. Okay? So there's this linkage, this cycle, winter, summer, winter, summer, winter, summer, responsibility, going around there. And then, of course, it gets kind of nutty. Okay. These are pronghorns. This is your mountain lion tail. So it's a pronghorn mountain lion with the dead ancestor of the fish. That's if you believe all that stuff. Then you just get right down to it. Winter takes over summer. You know, winter kills summer, and that's kind of it. The transition of power becomes rather brutal. I just like this one. I like this one because very few, I think there are like 3 of them, 3 Mimbres bowls that have this broken rim band. Mm-hmm. And broken rim bands after, say, 1200 become the norm. And so a lot of polychromes and genito polychromes, genito black on yellow, all of the post black and white folks, and even a lot of Tularosa and Cibola black and whites have broken Mimbres, but Mimbres does not. Mimbres does not really adhere to any kind of broken band thing except for a kill. So Mimbres are about the only ones that actually have a black painted rim, by golly. That seals that interior. Then you get this crazy stuff. I never, no.
Yes.
You know what they are? They are plants. Oh, and this is a coyote. This is a coyote dancing with, and there it is. There's a coyote tail where he brings to life these trees by mistake, of course, because coyote is always goofing up. He's a trickster figure, and they all kind of split up and start dancing around. And, but so who knows? But that's what these guys are. They're plants of some sort. And he was a one-legged thing. What's going on with this poor guy? This is a woman. See, females are in every pot. They are, even here. There you are, sweetie. Yeah, you're important. Yes, you are. Okay. And then your life. Yes, this is not everyday life. This is just very strange. And this is a pronghorn horn. And but that's just, I like that painting, but it's nothing particularly natural about that painting. And I hope I haven't just trotted. I can go through it all again if you want me to. At the end of the classic Mimbres, this group of objects was found in the Mimbres area in a cave. It was cached objects. And it was taken to the Maxwell Museum where they dated it, and they kept it for a little while. And the male figure, which is wood, I think they said dated to the late part of the 12th century, like 1180, somewhere in there. It's kind of hard to date. And then they dated the basket that the little stone woman came in, right here, as being to the mid-15th century. So it kind of spans that whole time period post-Mimbres. But these guys look very, they're probably, Salado time period, into Pueblo, into Mimbres, into, Chaco Great House, moving into Casas. These are snakes. Here are your snakes. Mm-hmm. Here's your mountain lion with the great eyelashes. And then these are rabbit throwing sticks. All of this stuff came with her in this basket and everything else. And then I just kind of finish up with my favorite couple, which were kind of the same guys as the ones before, this fellow and his girlfriend, wife to be, if not already. And that's it. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
I've got a question.
Yes.
How much laughing did these potters do when they were sitting around doing it?
Well, let's hope so.
What were they smoking?
At least I think they had a good time. Because I certainly had a good time looking at them. And it's hard to say. It's hard to say, you know, we like to think, and we have the pot that shows the woman painting them. But we know from contemporary Pueblo that, of course, a lot of stuff changes. Women, it's often will make a pot, but other members of the family, including their husbands, sometimes paint them. So it's like a lot of these things may have been collaborative works. You know, so it's kind of, but a lot of art in these communities is collaborative as well. I mean, we like to think of art as being set aside. In many cultures, art, everybody is an artist. Everybody knows how to dance. You know, and everybody knows how to sing. Some people dance and sing better than others, and some painters paint better than others. And I think a lot of the great classic Mimbres painters were rewarded by being able to do this, if not full time, a lot of the time. You know, because they were really, really good. Because you get a lot of lousy painted pots, but they're painted. They're all black on white. They all have basic iconography there, but some are more technically advanced than others. Yes.
Were there large numbers of just geometric forms?
Oh,
or
yeah, far outstripped. I'm trying to think. I used to have it in my brain how many figurative pieces as opposed to geometric. I mean, figurative ones, 900 out of the whole group or something like that.
It's about 10 to 1.
10 to 1 geometric to
Yeah,
figurative?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, I think it's more than that. And yeah, and I went through and I tossed out plain layers, and I tossed out fakes, and I tossed out duplicates in the Mimbres archive, and came up with stuff that, yeah, there are a lot of great geometry. And a lot of the geometry that are reserved center, and they're ordered compositions, and they all have this sort of rib band, and then the lines are perfect. It's raining.
Is there, the ones that have the geometric ones?
Yeah.
Is there something you'd like to say about those? Because those things so impressed me with the kind of work that was done. It reflects from side to side in an opposite pattern and all that.
Can you start, Bill, will you start at the first slide? Because I can't do
Sure.
that.
Sure.
And I'm not going to start the lecture over. If I do, I'll just be here.
Well, it's raining out.
Yeah, that's true. Just, see. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, so like I said, we oftentimes have a band. Let's see, and you have a lot of emphasis on the center of the pot, of course. Even if you take out the kill hole, like if you're just using it in everyday use. So you have a quarter, one of those quarter composition with this wonderful radiating black rim band, sometimes a lot of bands below, and then bands inside. Very fine line. I mean, they're not really using a caliper as far as I can tell.
Yeah, how did they do that?
I don't know, yeah, very, very careful. Well, you have to, I have seen about 3, and this is interesting too, they were just laid out with just marking bands. They were fired. So the pot was the important thing. It was fired even though it wasn't even near finished. They just started it. Either that or the kid just got up and left, or the
Yeah.
artist killed over jet and decided to fire a floor or whatever. But yeah, so you do get, I mean, the geometrics are, oops, wrong side.
Tiny lines are.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so this is bold compared to
Oh, my goodness.
some of them. You know, the black and white checks. And the other thing is, a lot of this line stems from right here. And it goes all the way around. Yeah, I mean, that's nuts. How do they do that? I don't know.
Well, there's two questions, how and why.
Oh, no, why?
What am I supposed to
It's
learn
important.
from this?
Well, the why is because this is integral to their, art is integral to culture.
Yeah.
You know, they learned, they needed these things. This was important stuff. Other cultures, it might be some other art. Like, I'm trying to think. After this, oh, I know, after this, classic Mimbres, instead of having these black and white paintings on them, they have a smudged black interior. That's it. No more black and white paintings on the interior of the books. And I Fred Cabote, who's a Hopi artist that I met before he died, and wonderful gentleman. But he also wrote something. I think somebody interviewed him about it, and he said about Mimbres pottery. He actually has a book that talks about Mimbres books and mythology and Hopi mythology. And he said this could not happen today. Nobody would be completely tabooed to show myths on the inside of bowls. And so something happened at 1130 to 1180 where it was no longer proper to paint these bowls like this. And part of it has to do with that whole movement of people around 1200. You had various people moving into different areas, and so their ideology may have been interrupted by people coming in. So you have to accommodate these people. You have to accommodate their worldview, their religion, their ideology. You can't just, if you don't accommodate them, you're going to have warfare.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happens in Salado. When you start getting Salado polychromes, you get style from all over the place. Same thing with Casas Grande. They emulate a lot of different people's pottery styles. You know, they accommodate people. And so at some point it wasn't important. But obviously, and that's art historians, this was important. To have these fabulous interior black and white paintings, either for everyday use or for rite of passage, be it birth, adolescence, marriage, puberty.
Maybe they were competing.
Well, I think a lot of artists,
Competition.
I think a lot of artists are competing. I think it was, who is it? Steve LeBlanc talks a bit about that, about how many people are living in a village and how many potters would be in a village. And you might, in large villages, you might have 2 potters. And that would be a good competition. And they'd be like potter families. And so, yeah, and that's what artists do. They look at other people's stuff. Whoa. You have to be in the confines of style. You can't do anything too outrageous if nobody's going to like it. But if you're on the cutting edge and you push that envelope and make something, you know, kind of nice, other people are going to emulate it. And that's why people looking at different hands of the artist. What Matt says, Matt makes art. He's a ceramist. He's well explored and anthropologist. You do more than one. They'll paint something, they'll paint something like it, or paint it again, or they'll paint something, then you'll move on to something else. You might, like somebody making hummingbird paintings on the inside of it, you might make 3 of them, and then you just not. But yeah. But so a lot of emphasis on the interior, a lot of emphasis on border designs, spectacular fine line work, a lot of stuff taken all the way, and then you have little weird stuff like the diamond eye imagery.
That's an artist.
Yeah, that's right. You got it. They are artists. Don't anybody tell you any different. This is like a plant. This is a flat bottom one with slanted sides. It's not a hemisphere wall.
Is that Casas on the
Well, you know, I've never really seen any cactus in but that's as close as you get to a saguaro, I think, but it's probably not, you know? But I'm not, because we don't have saguaros in here. Yeah.
Do you think that these were painted at the same time they were painting the ones where you spend most of your time with the people and the animals?
Oh, yeah,
They overlap?
yeah.
Time
Because I can kind of tell, there's some, when you look at some of the animal ones, would have geometric designs in the interior,
Yeah.
you can find some geometric poles that you know are by the same artist, because it's identical stuff. Because like there's, Steve LeBlanc has a whole bunch of white rabbit Mimbres poles, and they look a lot like this turned into a rabbit. You know? So it's kind of fun. And then you get the little polychrome, just ordered compositions. Yeah, they're good. And then this is what I like. You know? Okay, I like that too. This is reduced red. But,
Oxidized.
Oxidized. Sorry, oxidized, not reduced. Is that extra beer? Do you have questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.